Spoštovani, še 32 let nazaj je bila Slovenija še vedno del totalitarne Jugoslavije. Tale vila, kjer danes gostimo ta visoki obisk, je služila slovenski komunistični eliti, medtem ko smo bili drugi takrat v zaporih komunističnega režima. Na 100 000 naših rojakov je bilo takrat razseljenih po zahodni Evropi, v Severni in Južni Ameriki in Avstraliji. Toda danes je Slovenija samostojna in demokratična republika, kar je rezultat našega boja za svobodo, vladavino prava, človekove pravice in demokracijo. Vendar ta boj ne bi bil uspešen, če istočasno ne bi bila izbojevana zmaga svobodnega zahodnega sveta z Združenimi državami Amerike na čelu napram sovjetskemu režimu, ki je z izvozom totalitarizma za slabega pol stoletja razdelil Evropo, železno zaveso in prizadejal smrt in gorje desetinam, stotinam milijonom ljudi. Slovenci smo zato hvaležni Združenim državam za njihovo dvakratno obrambo in reševanje naše stare celine v prejšnjem stoletju, najprej pred nevarnostjo in grozotami nacizma, fašizma in nato pred tiranijo komunizma. Fašizem, nacizem in komunizem so slovenskemu narodu povzročili veliko gorja in rane, ki jih še vedno celimo. O tem zgovorno priča tudi spominski zapis na ograji ameriškega veleposlaništva v Ljubljani. Hvaležni smo Združenim državam tudi zato, ker so dale 100 000 našim rojakom zatočišče, ko so v prejšnjem stoletju v svobodnem svetu iskali varnost in svobodo zase in za svoje otroke. Danes je Slovenija članica Evropske unije in Zveze NATO. Prizadevamo si, da bi bili znotraj zavezništva kredibilen partner in da bi bil hkrati naš glas upoštevan. Zato smo danes še posebej veseli, da lahko v Sloveniji gostimo državnega sekretarja Združenih držav Amerike, gospoda Mika Pompea, njegovo soprogo Susan in njegove sodelavce. V njegovem delu in naporih ter prizadevanjih njega in predsednika Združenih držav vidimo podporo vrednotam svobode, vladavine prava, človekovih pravic, človekovega dostojanstva oziroma nadaljevanje politike, ki je omogočila padec berlinskega zidu, železne zavese in ponovno svobodno sodelovanje in povezovanje evropskih narodov. V času, ko se v obeh državah, kot tudi druge po svetu, prednostno še vedno soočamo s pandemijo COVID-19, so govorila tudi o izkušnjah Slovenije in ZDA v boju zoper novi koronavirus in prenesel sem tudi in tudi tukaj prenašam izraze solidarnosti Združenih držav Amerike v spoprijemanju s pandemijo in njenimi posledicami. Zdaj, poleg vsega ostalega je tudi ta pandemija koronavirusa spet pokazala, da pravzaprav izzivi sodobnega časa niso nič manjši od tistih pred desetletji, le da je Slovenija tukaj del zavezništva, ki išče in ki je sposobno najti rešitve za te izzive. Aktualne razmere v svetu danes kličejo k še tesnejšemu partnerstvu med Evropo in Združenimi državami Amerike ter krepitvi globalne vodstvene vloge transatlantske skupnosti. Zdaj, s tem sem predstavil tudi prednostna področja našega slovenskega predsedovanja Svetu Evropske unije prihodnje leto, kamor smo med prednosti dodali tudi vzpostavljanje kapacitet za soočanje s kriznimi situacijami, kakršne so pandemija ali kibernetski napadi. Slovenija si bo vse skozi, še posebej pa med našim vodenjem Evropske unije, prizadevala za nadaljne tesno sodelovanje Evropske unije z Združenimi državami Amerike. Zdaj, posebno pozornost sva namenila tudi Severnoatlantskemu zavezništvu. Vidimo ga kot najbolj trden temelj evropsko-ameriških odnosov. Strinjali smo se tudi glede nadaljnih bremen delitve med zaveznicami, kot veste, je Slovenija v zadnjih mesecih naredila nekatere korake, na podlagi katerih bo vse tisto, kar so vlade obljubljale od leta 2014 v smislu izpolnitve naših obveznosti tudi naredila. Ocenili smo tudi dosedanje dvostransko obrambno in vojaško sodelovanje. Potekal se tam od leta 1994, ko sem sam kot takratni obrambni minister podpisal dogovor o sodelovanju med armadama in Slovenija je zainteresirana tudi za poglobitev tega sodelovanja. Slovenija ceni proaktivni ameriški pristop glede energetske varnosti v Srednji Evropi. Ta se izkazuje tudi z močno podporo povezavam, kot sta pobuda treh morij in partnerstvo za čezatlantsko energetsko sodelovanje. V obeh pobudah bo Slovenija krepila svojo vlogo. V pogovorih smo ocenili tudi gospodarsko sodelovanje med državama. Združene države so tretji naložbeni partner Slovenije. Strinjali smo se, da obstajajo tudi številne možnosti za nadaljnjo krepitev trgovine in naložb. Slovenija premore tudi kar nekaj dobrih podjetij iz področja informacijske tehnologije, ki lahko sodelujejo tudi pri nadaljnjem razvoju tehnologij v zvezi z vsebino, ki smo jo danes podpisali v tej izjavi. Tako da tukaj prepoznavamo največ teh novih priložnosti. Da pa bi lahko vse te potencijale izkoristili, smo se odločili tudi za poglobljeno sodelovanje na področju kibernetske varnosti. To namero izkazuje ta pravkar podpisana skupna izjava. S tem povečanim sodelovanjem bomo okrepili tako nacionalno varnost, kot tudi povečali blaginjo in ohranili odprtost naših družb. Izmenjava stališč o mednarodnih temah je potrdila, da Slovenija in Združene države delita vrsto podobnih ali pa enakih pogledov glede vrste vprašanj, vključno z razmerami na Zahodnem Balkanu, ki bodo tudi ena od slovenskih prioritet v času vodenja Evropske unije. Govorili smo tudi o odnosih s Kitajsko in Rusijo. V teh odnosih moramo iskati in upoštevati strateški interes naše civilizacije, ki temelji na vrednotah varnosti, svobode, vladavine prava in demokracije. Ta načela naj bodo tudi temelj usklajevanja in iskanja skupnih stališč med Evropo in Združenimi državami v odnosu tako do Ruske federacije kot do Kitajske. Spoštovani, če smo v obdobju hladne vojne verjeli, da je največja nevarnost jedrski spopad in uničenje velikega dela planeta, danes obstaja še bolj kompleksna grožnja hibridnega napada oziroma kombinirana uporaba kibernetskega in biološkega orožja, elektromagnetnih udarov in uporabe klasičnih armad. Toda za razliko od splošnega zavedanja te nevarnosti v času hladne vojne, je danes ozaveščenost ljudi o tej nevarnosti na Zahodu bistveno manjša oziroma je zelo nizka. In to kljub bolečim izkušnjam tudi iz zadnje pandemije in ta nizko ozaveščenost nevarnost zgolj nesorazmerno povečuje. Zaradi tega Združene države vidimo kot edino silo zahodne civilizacije, ki se je sposobna soočiti s to kompleksno grožnjo, tako v smislu odvračanja, kot v smislu dejanske možnosti obrambe in Slovenija tukaj pripravljena prispevati tudi svoje napore za to, da bomo tukaj uspešni. Predvsem pa se gospodu Pompeju zahvaljujem za vsa tista vlaganja in za vse napore Združenih držav na tem področju, kajti ti napori zagotavljajo tudi našo varnost. Hvala seveda gospodu sekretarju tudi za današnji obisk in za dobre vsebinske pogovore. Ti so potrdili, da je pred nami veliko skupnih priložnosti in ciljev, pa tudi veliko skupnih izzivov, s katerimi se bomo soočili. Trdno slovensko-ameriško prijateljstvo, partnerstvo in zavezništvo bo omogočalo, da bomo pri tem uspešni. Hvala tudi gospe ambasadorki Lindi Blanchard za nadvse dobro sodelovanje pri pripravi tega pomembnega obiska. Bog živi v stoletjih skovano prijateljstvo med slovenskim in ameriškim narodom. Hvala lepa.
Hvala lepa, gospod predsednik vlade. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Secretary Pompeo.
Thank you, Prime Minister Janša. Okay, you win. This is beautiful. I want to thank Foreign Minister Logar, President Power, and the other Slovenian leaders for making this trip possible and so graciously hosting me at this beautiful place. I appreciate all the work that everyone put into making this happen. I know during this time of the coronavirus it's especially difficult, and I know you did a lot of work, and I thank you for it. It's an important gathering. Of course, when I told President Trump I was headed here, he was happy. When I told Mrs. Trump, she was even happier. She was very excited. She knows of your gorgeous country. It's, of course, where she is from, where she was born and raised, and she said to send her best. And I will speak to her about this great visit when I get back to Washington as well. We had an excellent set of productive conversations today, discussions on a wide range of topics. The Prime Minister spoke about them, but they each reflect our growing friendship and the strategic partnership between our two countries. It's important now more than ever, perhaps. The contrast between free and unfree societies has never been clearer, and free nations must work together to confront authoritarian threats. Slovenia has remarkably supported EU sanctions against Russia because it is concerned about its malign activity against Ukraine. But of course, we face a number of other threats as well. Chief among those threats is the Chinese Communist Party and its drive to control people and information and our economies. As you just saw, I was pleased to sign a joint declaration with the foreign minister that excludes untrusted vendors from 5G networks. This will benefit the people of this country and all of us who share information across complex network systems. More and more here in Europe and in nations around the world, leaders are taking sovereign decisions to protect the privacy and individual liberties of their citizens, whether it's in Belarus or Lebanon or Hong Kong. People just want to live in freedom. I know, too, that Slovenia prides itself on being a science and technology leader, and becoming a 5G clean country as you're doing today solidifies that position. The tide is turning against the Chinese Communist Party and its efforts to restrict freedom for all of us. We also had extensive conversations about stronger trade and investment ties, the opportunities to invest so that each of our economies can bounce back from where they are today more strongly, more quickly, after this horrible pandemic that was birthed in Wuhan, China. We also appreciate Slovenia's strong support for the 3 Cs initiative and for hosting a successful summit just last year. I announced back in February of this year that the United States would commit up to $1 billion for sustainable and transparent digital, energy, and infrastructure projects connected to the 3 Cs initiative. We're pleased, too, to help fund that important partnership. We understand Slovenia is in the process of making its decision. We urge a quick commitment. In that same vein, I want to applaud Slovenia for setting up an investment screening mechanism to protect its people and promoting the Blue Dot Network, which sets very high standards to make sure that infrastructure investment makes sense and protects the people of your country. One more note on economic ties. We spoke about the enormous potential of next-generation nuclear technology to deliver clean, reliable, diversified energy that will help ensure political independence and economic prosperity for Slovenia and the entire region. And I'm looking forward to a productive discussion here just in a few minutes with Slovenian energy executives to get the view from the C-suite leaders of those companies. Lastly, I want to thank Slovenia for its remarkable leadership here in Europe. You made the exemplary decision to increase defense spending by nearly $1 billion a year. It's a testament to your country's growing commitment to NATO and our collective efforts. And you've long been a positive force for promoting Balkan countries' integration with Western institutions. That matters a lot to the United States, and we're deeply appreciative of that. I know that Slovenia will continue to reflect democratic values as you assume the EU presidency next year, and we're very much looking forward to working with you in that new and important role for your country. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Secretary Pompeo. We are now beginning with the questions, and one question from the Slovenian press pool. Mr. Edvard Žitnik from National TV, please, you have the floor.
Mr. Secretary, why was it necessary to sign the 5G document today with Slovenia? What was so specific and not with some other members of the EU? And my second question, if I may, you already mentioned you are meeting Slovenian business community today. Could you give us some specifics about your ambitions on that area? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Look, as for the 5G document, it's important in its own right. That is, it is absolutely critical that every nation makes a good sovereign decision for itself about how private information of its citizens is going to be handled. And what we want to make sure is, all of us, America too, that we're getting it right. That the people who put the infrastructure in place, the countries from which those systems emanate, don't have ready, easy, automatic, mandatory access for their national security system. I'll just be very blunt. That's an absolute imperative. It's an imperative then larger for Europe and the United States to work together, because we have information that goes back and forth. We have American citizens that travel across networks that run all throughout Europe. And so it was very important that we get this right. And Slovenia has been a great partner. They're sophisticated. Their technology is very capable. Their leadership understands the networked nature of this information. So it was a great partner to sign this document with, and there was no time like today to do it. I'm very thrilled that we were able to get it completed in time for my visit. Tell me your second question again.
Business opportunity.
Yeah, so more. Look, there's lots of places. Nations that have the rule of law and private property and contract rights and judicial redress, all the things that we all take for granted sometimes, are the kinds of nations that American businesses want to invest in. And I know the same thing's true for Slovenian companies who want to grow their platform in the United States so they can have access to 300 million Americans as well. Today we're going to have a focus on energy issues as well. We believe it is incredibly important for American national security that Europe have a diversified energy base, that it has multiple sources, that it doesn't have to depend for Russia on all of its energy. We don't think that's wise for any country. We think it puts Americans at risk too. And so I want to talk about how we can work together to reduce that national security risk while providing safe and affordable and clean energy for the people of Slovenia as well. Thank you.
Morgan, it's your turn.
Will Maldin, Wall Street Journal.
Thank you so much. For Mr. Prime Minister, I wanted to ask you, you talked about democracy and freedom at the beginning. If you had any advice for the Secretary of State about how to deal with the recent elections in Belarus and the protests going on there, or if you if you wanted to give advice to President Lukashenko, what would it be? And then I wanted to ask for Mr. Secretary of State.
I can't wait to hear that. That's going to be great.
Well, they're headed for the EU presidency, so for Mr. Secretary of State, you've mentioned cooperation in trade a lot this trip, and commercial ties as a way of strengthening ties with the U.S., almost as an alternative to Russia or China. I wonder if you have any new cooperation to announce in those areas in the Czech Republic or Slovenia, or have heard of any others since the trip started. And also, if that kind of cooperation makes sense in this region, does it make sense in Asia as well? The Taiwanese president has offered to start trade talks with the U.S., and I think that's just an offer that's hanging out there that we haven't heard a public response to.
Great,
thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Well, I'm afraid there are other people in Slovenia which Mr. Lukashenko would listen to their advices more than to my advices. But I think that only peaceful solution for the current crisis in Belarus is to repeat the elections under the strong presence of the international observation missions. I think that if President Lukashenko agrees on that, this could solve the whole situation there. So I think that, and Slovenia is already making some initiatives to create a pressure for this to happen. We hope that the European Union will act with, it seems so, that we are acting with anonymous voice, and we see the same approach from the United States. And I think this is the part of half of the solution.
Just to follow up on that, I'm confident that the EU and the United States both share the same concerns about what has taken place and what is taking place in Belarus. And I'm very hopeful that we can collectively work in a way that gets a better outcome for the people in Belarus. As for the commercial transactions, they happen every day without us getting in the middle of it. Our mission set is to get out of the way, to reduce trade friction, to reduce trade barriers, to come to a set of common understanding standards and the like, so that free nations, like-minded nations, can trade at a higher level. I know it's always cool to show up with a big commercial announcement, some big project. We hope we can do those things too. But in the end, what we spend a lot of time talking about is how can we set up a rules-based system where like-minded nations, whether that's the Australians, the Indians, the Japanese, and the South Koreans, you referred to Taiwan in Asia, and European countries, South American countries that share our views of property rights and the rule of law as well, and certainly between the United States and Slovenia. We hope that we can set up the right frameworks, the right rules system, so that you can trade easily between the two countries, that you can invest easily, one country amongst the other, where we can have exchanges among our academic institutions as well, places with real technological capability. I'm very confident that the set of conversations we had today will increase that activity between our two countries and between the United States more broadly in Europe as well.
And what about with Taiwan, that kind of framework?
We're trying to figure out precisely how to proceed with that. I don't have an answer for you today that I'm prepared to provide, but I was following closely Secretary Azar's travel there, where we had a good conversation about how we can reduce the risk, not only that is ongoing from this pandemic, but reduce the risk from the potential next one as well.